I've been putting off filming this just because I keep doing the thing where I'm like, okay, just finish one more book and then I'll do my wrap up. Just one more book. I figure month is officially over. It's time. Hello lovely people, my name's Nicole and today I am doing my April wrap-up. So this month I read 11 books, 2 graphic novels, and 1 novella. So I think I'm feeling pretty good about that. I'm definitely out of any slumps that I've been in. So let's just jump right in and get started. The first book I read this month was Miss Mayhem by Rachel Hawkins. This is the sequel to Rebel Belle, which is about a girl who is a classic Southern belle, and she is sort of the top of her school. She's, you know, the homecoming queen and head cheerleader and president of every single club, and then one day she gets badass fighting powers and has to use them to defend her arch nemesis. I'm not going to go into the plot of this one very much just because it's a sequel, but I will say that I definitely loved it. It was so much fun. There were some plot elements that I definitely didn't expect, but I really enjoyed. And I really like how it picked up some of the threads that I was really interested in from the previous book. So yes, I definitely think it was worth the read, and I am very excited for the next book in the series, which I think is the last one. I think it's only a trilogy. So I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is one that I've already talked about quite a bit, and that is Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I loved this book. It's about a boy who has to deal with being in the closet at his high school, and he's in a secret email relationship with another boy at his school, but they don't know who each other are because they use code names, and someone's blackmailing him, threatening to expose his sexuality. I love it. It was funny and clever, and the teenagers acted like teenagers, and it was just so much fun to read. I have a full review on Goodreads that I will link in the doobly-doo, and then also I have a full video review that I'll link. But 5 out of 5 stars, definitely. The next book I read was Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. This is the 3rd and final book in the Grisha trilogy, which is about a girl who lives in a fantasy land that is vaguely reminiscent of sort of ancient Russia, and she finds these amazing light powers that she is supposed to use to close this horrible magical evil rift that's been in their land. And I am having trouble reviewing this one just because I read it a while ago and I've been reading a lot of other things since, and so I don't have what happened exactly fresh on my mind, which I suppose says something, but I do remember really enjoying it. I thought it was a good finale. I remember that I really enjoyed how it ended and how everything sort of wrapped up. Even if there were a couple elements that I wasn't quite sure during like the action scenes, I wasn't quite sure exactly what was happening always, but I do remember I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 5 stars. Next book I read was The Deaf by Cody Keplinger. I went into this with probably way too high expectations because everyone has said how much they love it, and I really enjoyed the movie. I didn't like it all that much. I mean, there were definitely parts of it that I liked, but a combination of things like the main character annoyed me a lot of the times, and it felt like a lot of the characters were sort of two-dimensional, and I had kind of a love-hate relationship with it, gotta say. I preferred the movie, although I will say that I really loved Wesley in the book, and I love that we get to see more of his family and his side of what's going on. So I gave this 3 stars. And I wrote a longer review of this on Goodreads, which I will link in the doobly-doo. The next book I read was Vicious by V.E. Schwab, and holy crap, I loved it. It was amazing. I was a little worried going in because it's gotten so much hype and so many people have said that they absolutely love it, but I figured, you know, I really love all her other books, so I'll give it a shot, and I absolutely adored this. It was so good. Playing with... Okay, so the plot line of it is that you follow 2 men who were best friends in high school, and they were experimenting with sort of superpowers and the idea of people, of extraordinary peoples, or EOs, and they then 10 years later are now arch nemeses, and one of them is hunting EOs, and the other one just got out of prison for misusing his EO powers. And it is amazing, and so many just like weird, complex morality issues, and I loved all the characters, and it's, I just want to go on and rave about this for hours and hours and hours, but I feel like I'd just say it was amazing and perfect and beautiful for every single sentence. But I definitely really loved this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Mosquito Land by David Arnold, and I love this cover, but unfortunately I wasn't so hot on this book. This is about a girl who overhears her dad and her stepmom talking about the fact that her mom is in the hospital, and so she runs away and hops a bus to go visit her mom and see if she's okay, because she hasn't talked to her mom in months now. And like I said, I was just kind of meh on it. Mim, the main character, felt really kind of special snowflakey at times, and there were a lot of things about it that just didn't work for me. There were a lot of elements that I feel like I should have liked, but that just didn't really click with me. And then there were also a number of plot lines that just felt a little bit too convenient, so I gave it 3.5-ish stars. The next book I read was for a class, and that is Caves of Steel by Isaac Asimov. This is a classic sci-fi about a man who works as a police detective, and he finds out that someone was murdered and he has to have a robot as his partner on this case. And it was kind of bleh for me. It's not the genre that I typically enjoy all that much. I'm not much for hardcore sci-fi. But I can see from an objective standpoint why it would be regarded as one of the great sci-fi classics. It just wasn't really my thing. I think the writing style is mainly the sort of disconnect with me. In most of the books that I'm used to reading, they're very focused on what the character is feeling, and this was not particularly focused on that. It was mainly what's going on, and it just didn't really give a lot of insight into what they're thinking, what they're feeling, how this is affecting, how the events that are happening are affecting the emotional and mental states of the characters, and I just wasn't really my thing. It was a combination of sci-fi and detective novel, which just didn't really click with me. So I gave it, I think, 3 stars. The next 2 things I read are the Saga graphic novels, volume 1 and 2 by Brian K. Vaughan, illustrated by Fiona Staples. Yes. This was another one that I went into sort of apprehensive because of all the hype and worried that the hype would ruin it for me, but no, I absolutely loved these. So the storyline of this graphic novel series is that it's 2 people from different worlds in the literal space sense, and their worlds have been at war for hundreds of years, but they met and they fall in love, and the story begins when they have a kid, and they have to sort of try and not get caught so their kid doesn't get murdered because they're wanted. And it's so good. The art style is awesome. The characters are cool and badass. Seriously, the mom is the most badass of badasses, and I love her so much, and I'm so excited to just continue reading it and watch their kid grow up, and it's so good. Next, I read Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jessie Andrews. This is one that I picked up pretty much based on Raylene from Padfoot and Prong's 07's recommendation. That and the fact that the movie's coming out, and I wanted to read the book before I see the movie. I am not sure how I feel about this. I think I loved it. But it's one of those things where it was just so different that it's a little hard to tell. It was either the best book ever or the worst book ever. I'm leaning towards best. So the storyline of this one is that a teenage boy is in his senior year, and he has spent a lot of time making sure he's basically invisible and no one wants to kill him. And then one day his mom comes to him and says, "Hey, this girl's dying of leukemia, you should go be her friend. And then that sort of messes up his whole invisible plan. And it's very different. It's not like some romantic Tivios kind of thing, which I kind of appreciate, as much as I adore, like, Tivios and stuff. It was definitely refreshing. There was no romance whatsoever. It was 100% friendship, and a couple of times he actually brought up, like, hey, if this were a romantic book, we'd make out now, but it's not. And he was just, the main character was really snarky and funny, but like funny in the way that he's not trying to be funny, but he's not trying to be funny makes him more funny. And it's just kind of a little hard to describe the feeling of this book. It's just great. And I'm gonna leave it at that. I gave it, I think 4 stars. Next, I read another series, and that is the Just One Day, Just One Year, and then Just One Night duology plus novella. This is a story about a girl who is on a class trip throughout Europe, and on the last day, she and her best friend are going to go stay with her best friend's aunt for a day or two before heading home to America. But while they're on their way to her best friend's aunt, she encounters this cute guy who invites her to go to Paris with him for just a day, and then she can go back to her friend and her aunt and then go home. And she decides that she wants to accept. Just, you know, live a little, or whatever. And then they have fun in Paris, and then they get separated and spend the next year, like, thinking about that one day that they spent together. And the first book is told from the girl's point of view, and the second book is told from the guy's point of view. And then the novella picks up right after the end of both of them. And I really loved this. It was cute and fluffy and amazing. I think actually without Just One Year, I wouldn't have liked it as much, because I think without it, the guy would have felt a little too manic pixie, little too perfect, mysterious guy kind of thing. But you definitely got to know him a lot more in Just One Year, and got to know sort of his side of things and what happened and all that jazz, and I absolutely loved it. I think I gave all of them 5 out of 5 stars. And then the final book that I read this month was another one for class, and that was Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is another classic sci-fi. This one takes place on a world where they don't have genders. They're just completely androgynous, except for during their mating cycle, which happens about once a month, where they pair off and each sort of grow genders for just a couple days, and then they go back to being androgynous. And it's about a guy who is from some other planet, and therefore is a guy, and he's coming to their planet to sort of invite them to join the, basically, it's like an intergalactic alliance type thing. And then it's a lot of politics and a lot of that kind of thing, and I didn't really like it all that much. Okay, the first thing that annoyed me was the fact that even though most of the characters are androgynous, they were regularly referred to using masculine pronouns. Just because the main character decided he has to identify them with a gender, completely ignoring what they want, or what they're comfortable with. Nope, okay. And also, it was, the way he thought was kind of sexist. Whenever anyone brought up a trait that he deemed to be masculine, he was like, oh yeah, that's a strong trait, and that's good. And whenever anyone exhibited any kind of, like, stereotypically feminine traits, he's like, ugh, gross feminine traits, maybe that's why I don't like you. And I'm like, wow, no, I'm not down with that. And then also, the pacing felt really weird. They spent, entire chapters describing in detail these super elaborate political discussions, but whenever any action happened, like, getting kidnapped or rescued from jail or something, like, it was just brushed over in a single paragraph. I'm like, come on, you could have made an entire chapter out of that epic epic thing that just happened. And instead, like, I didn't even realize that it was happening because it was 100% just blink and you'll miss it. It really annoyed me. And then also it kept changing perspective, first person perspectives between two different characters, and except until I, like, caught on that it was alternating between chapters, which it wasn't for the first couple chapters, I was completely lost. Because there was no indication and that it was switching perspectives, and, like, there wasn't even really all that much of a difference in the, like, writing style between them, in the voice between them, and it just really annoyed me, and I can see kind of why it would have literary significance and stuff. So I gave it 2 stars, but it was just not something I enjoyed. So those are all the books I read this month. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you read this month, or what I should read next month. And I love you, and I will see you later. Bye!